Chapter 1491, Maid Cafe. The maid cafes in Neon are much more varied than those in Huaxiu. Here, as long as you spend enough money, you can theoretically enjoy extremely thoughtful service. The maids inside are all young and beautiful girls. Few are over 25 years old. Most of them are students who come out to work part-time. Here, service is paramount. The smiles on their faces never disappear, and they will politely respond to various requests from customers. Zhang Yi ordered a few omelette rice and unknown neon drinks, and then sat in the back row and looked at the place quietly. After the food was served, Zhang Yi and his friends naturally would not eat it. This is not only to avoid poisoning, but also to consider that there are aliens attacking them through food and drinks. But the guests in the front rows were very excited, especially the private residences, holding cheering light boards, posters, and light sticks in their hands, looking at the small stage in the front, full of excitement. Zhang Yi looked at them and did not notice anything unusual. Zhang Yi and his friends were at the back. While no one was paying attention, he took out some drinks to replace the drinks on the table, picked up a cup, and drank it while waiting for the show. Anyway, the official event will not start until the evening. Now that we have not obtained enough information, we can just enjoy the performance with peace of mind. As for those troublesome things, let Deng Shentong and others handle them. After all, this operation was initiated by him. Did you notice anything wrong? Zhang Yi chatted with Yang Xinxin and Zhou Ke through the internal channel. Zhou Ke blinked. No. I think this place is very normal, just like the scene before the end of the world. It's just... She paused. It's because it's too normal. This is a bit abnormal. Yang Xinxin said softly. After the advent of the Ice Age, human survival should be the top priority. And this city still has a lot of leisure and entertainment activities. This is very abnormal in itself. She gently stretched out her hand, wearing black gloves, thin, but with excellent thermal insulation effect. The air temperature is not high. But their clothes don't look like they can withstand the low temperature of -60 degrees. This is also very strange. Zhang Yi nodded slowly. This is something I have always found difficult to understand. Generally speaking, only those with strong physical fitness or those wearing specially made combat uniforms can withstand such low temperatures. But in the entire Edo City, people only wear ordinary winter clothes. Even in Akihabara, you can still see girls wearing winter-made outfits. All this is too abnormal. There are only two most reasonable explanations. Either all the passers-by in the entire Edo City are aliens, and they have acquired the attribute of cold resistance, or it is a certain alien with extremely strong abilities who has changed their lifestyle. Now, let's wait and see. Zhang Yi took a sip of coffee and said lightly. Not long after, the host came up to the stage and announced with a smile that today's performance was about to begin. Mina-san, the universe's first super kawaii girl idol, Miss Teramondori, is about to appear. With the host's exaggerated introduction, the audience immediately became restless. At the front row of tables, there were private houses with Teramondori headbands on their heads and several middle-aged uncles in suits. They waved their glow sticks excitedly and shouted Termon Suji's name. Then, a girl in a cute performance costume came out from behind the scenes. She was wearing a blue and white outfit, high-top boots on her feet, and a guitar hanging on her body. She walked to the center of the stage and waved enthusiastically to the guests below with a smile on her face. Thank you for your care. Odong is very grateful to everyone here. Next, please listen to my latest song, Humans Are Maggots. The smile on Termon Suji's face was extremely sincere. The professionalism of Japanese underground idols is very worthy of learning from domestic young idols. At least they have always done a good job on the surface. The fans below have already raised their glow sticks excitedly. And in the backstage, the band has started playing. It is a small band composed of a drummer, keyboardist, and bassist. Termon Suji himself is the lead singer and guitarist. The restless music resounded throughout the cafe, with the drummer's powerful and heavy knocks. Termon Suji's singing is pretty good. As an underground idol, He must have considerable strength to be able to perform in a maid cafe in a place like Akihabara. The sweet voice almost penetrated the ceiling. As she sang, the fans below stood up, waved their light sticks, and began to dance to the beat. Zhang Yi was originally drinking coffee and listening to the song quietly, but the next scene almost made him spit out the coffee in his mouth in surprise. Those fat private residences and middle-aged office workers in suits were actually dancing vigorously with their bodies that should not have much vitality. The lights were dim, and their arms were waving the light sticks in their hands flexibly. The red and blue lights flashed, and the movements were uniform, forming circles and Mobius strips. Following the beat of the music, sometimes fast and sometimes slow, it was just like a professional cheerleading team. Looking at these guys dancing hard, Zhang Yi also deeply realized how powerful the underground idol culture of Japan is. His right leg couldn't help but tremble slightly with the music. Music is very contagious. He had forgotten how long it had been since he had participated in group activities so easily. Even Zhou Kuo and Yang Xinxin had some strange brilliance in their eyes when they looked at the stage. As long as they are human beings, they need to participate in social activities and will like wonderful performances from the bottom of their hearts. Zhang Yi and the other two actually watched this performance from beginning to end. The original plan was just to find a place to investigate intelligence. When the performance was over, Si Mentong on the stage was sweating profusely, but the bright smile on her face was still as warm as a sunflower. She stepped back half a step and bowed deeply to the audience below. Minasan arigato. It was more than an hour after watching the performance. Zhang Yi glanced at the time and decided to leave the maid cafe. When he was about to go out, a maid who looked very cute quietly put a note in his palm. After Zhang Yi went out, he opened it and took a look. Zhou Kuo and Yang Xinxin also looked over immediately, with some unfriendly eyes. "Brother, what did that girl give you?" Zhang Yi shook the note in his hand, a mailing address. He exerted a little force in his hand, and the note turned into debris and floated in the air. "Let's go. It's still early. Let's go somewhere else." Chapter 1492, Kabuki Hall. On the other side, the group of Fatty Sue, Uncle Yu, and Huahua were exploring Edo Castle in another direction. Although Zhang Yi repeatedly reminded Fatty Sue that there would be no place open in the Kabuki Hall during the day, he still couldn't let go of this long-awaited place, so he still followed the map and led Uncle Yu and Huahua to this place. Huahua is a cat, and Uncle Yu doesn't know much about these things, so he was fooled by Fatty Sue. But when they came here, they found that every store was closed, as Zhang Yi said. You can see a variety of light signs hanging on the street. Love House, Bubble Bath, and Cowherd Shop are everywhere. The most conspicuous light sign turned out to be the signboard of the Cowherd Shop, which clearly indicated their amazing performance. The most powerful one is a guy named Roland. The light sign shows that he has sold 150 million yen in drinks this year. Of course, yen refers to the neon currency unit. Amazing! Is this the king of gigolos? But this data must be from 2 or 3 years ago. Fatty Sue looked at the quiet and deserted Kabuki Hall and sighed in disappointment. Although Uncle Yu is old, he is not stupid and has realized what this place is. He grabbed Fatty Sue's ear angrily. "Hey, Chunlei, you guy, we are here to do business. Who told you to come to this kind of place?" Fatty Sue screamed. "No way. I'm just curious to see if I can run into a handyman. Stop talking nonsense here. Cheer up." Even Huahua lowered his head and sniffed the air, baring his teeth at Fatty Sue with a ferocious face. There was no way. Fatty Sue had to change direction. But how could such a thing be so rare that it could only be found in a top private house? Hearing that he was coming to Edo, he had already made a strategy. Not long after, he appeared in a figurine shop and began to salivate in front of the dazzling array of figurines. "Oh my God, is this heaven? I have to call the boss over and ask him to take all these things away," Fatty Sue shouted excitedly. Uncle Yu and Huahua were behind, one with a black face and the other meow, threatening in a low voice. Fatty Sue smiled honestly and scratched the back of his head. "Just for a while, let me see." Uncle Yu sighed helplessly. "Just for a while." Zhang Yi asked them to explore Edo. but did not give a specific goal, just asked them to see if there was anything unusual in the city. So instead of looking for it like a headless fly, it is better to circle out the key areas of concern. Maybe Fatty Sue, a professional private residence, can find something here. What's more, here there are really a lot of good things that are not available in China. Uncle Yu glanced at the corner of the store. There were some interesting toys piled there, and books with unusually wonderful covers. He coughed, his old face flushed, and then quietly moved his feet and walked over. Daliangde Museum. Deng Shintong brought Bai Chunyu and a few others to the vicinity. They lowered their hat brims, bought a few cups of hot coffee nearby, pretended to be passers-by who came to play, and kept observing everything around them. Pedestrians on the road hurried back and forth, and the Daliangde Museum was open as before, but to this day, not many people have the heart to appreciate the cultural relics in the severe cold. The surroundings seemed to be the same as usual. However, just 2 streets away, several buildings began to break from the bottom, tilted and leaned on other buildings. It was already a scene of ruins. But the surrounding Edo residents seemed to have been accustomed to this and continued to act as usual. Deng Shintong put one hand in his pocket and followed the crowd past the door of the Daliangde Museum. After a while, he met Bai Chunyu, Bailey Chongqing, and Wu Di on another street. The 4 of them took a thorough look at the surrounding situation from 4 directions of the street. There are no troops or aliens stationed nearby. If we want to invade, it will not be difficult, Bailey Chongqing said. Bai Chunyu crossed his arms and said, there are 2 possibilities. First, the Japanese have not discovered the importance of what we are looking for. Second, that thing has been moved. Deng Shintong thought for a while and said, no matter what, since we are here, we must take a look first. We are determined to get that thing. We must not let it stay in the hands of the Japanese. Wu Di put his hands in his pockets and smiled disapprovingly. Aren't we being too cautious? With our current military strength, sweeping across Japan is a piece of cake. The Colombian Navy doesn't have time to support us. We can conquer the entire Edo. If you ask me, we should just charge into the Daliangde Library, or break into the Yumal court to capture their boss and force them to hand over our national treasure. Why is there so much trouble? Bailey Chongqing frowned slightly. Wu Di, you are still so impatient. Don't forget, this is not our territory, so we should be careful. Wu Di wanted to argue something, but Bailey Chongqing continued. Even Zhang is cautious, so why are you so arrogant? Wu Di just said something when he heard Zhang Yi's name. He swallowed it. He was completely convinced by Zhang Yi. After all, he had been beaten up, and now the other party was even more powerful than he could reach. Okay, then what do you say we should do? Deng Shintong pressed the brim of his hat. After nightfall tonight, we will sneak into one of them to find out. That's why we must ask Zhang Yi for help. He is not only strong in combat, but also a master at infiltration investigation. Infiltration investigators are really important. Although Zhang Yi doesn't have a leather jacket, his ability is very useful, and he won't be caught so easily by the other party and do messy things. After the discussion, Deng Shintong made up his mind. He immediately contacted Zhang Yi and explained his idea. The area near the Daliangde Museum has been investigated and no abnormalities have been found. We will act tonight. He looked at the huge inverted pyramid-shaped building and said, if everything goes well, we can take away what we want without alerting anyone. I hope so. Zhang Yi said so. I haven't found anything unusual here, so let's wait quietly for the night to come. Deng Shintong and his 4 companions felt that it was inappropriate for them to keep wandering around, so they found a cafe and sat down. They ordered a cup of coffee and began to wait quietly for the night to come. The other teams were in a similar situation at this time. The aimless investigation during the day did not find any abnormalities in Edo, but instead they appreciated the scenery of Edo City. Chapter 1493, Izakaya. Fatty Sue was very happy today. At the beginning, he was a little reserved, fearing that he would be recognized in Edo. But slowly he let go. According to estimates, the population of Edo City is at least more than 500,000. After all, nearly 1/3 of the entire neon is concentrated in the city. After the end of the world, this place was least affected, and many people were still able to make a living. Fatty Sue is here, just one of the countless dead fat otakus who were on the road to Akihabara for pilgrimage, and he was not noticeable at all. After all, at present, they have not done anything, and the intelligence system can simulate a perfect neon accent, so no one will find that they are outsiders. Fatty Sue had a great time in Edo City. The money that Deng Shintong gave them was simply not enough to spend. He excitedly purchased several top-quality figurines, and then couldn't wait to experience other otaku culture in Edo. It's a pity that they have to act at night, and can't appreciate the style of the kabuki hall. But Fatty Sue, who had prepared a strategy, followed the instructions on the map and visited the famous otaku culture base here. Uncle Yu looked at Fatty Sue helplessly, but Zhang Yi only asked them to stay on duty until the evening, without any clear instructions for the task. So he let Fatty Sue go. As for Hua, she simply huddled into Uncle Yu's thick clothes and took a nap. Uncle Yu, come on, this place is awesome. Fatty Sue pointed to a shop in front and shouted excitedly to Uncle Yu behind him. Uncle Yu walked over helplessly. I know. What did you find? But when he got closer, he couldn't help but have a strange look in his eyes. I don't know how Fatty Sue found it, but in a remote alley, there was actually a bar open during the day. According to the neon time, it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sky was a little dim, but it was still some time before 5 o'clock when the night fell. As for why Uncle Sue could tell that this was an izakaya, it was obvious at a glance, with a huge sign in the shape of a soju bottle at the door. Hey Fatty Sue, are you sick? You actually come here to drink at this time? Uncle Yu frowned and glared at Fatty Sue. Fatty Sue quickly leaned over and whispered in his ear, This is not an ordinary pub. There is a special kill must die. I have made a guide. You will know once you enter. Special kill must die? Uncle Yu frowned even deeper. I say, what time is it now? Fatty Sue begged, I just want to see the world. I promise not to drink, just drink juice, okay? Uncle Yu refused, but he couldn't stand Fatty Sue's constant begging and promised not to drink and mess up things. Uncle Yu contacted Zhang Yi and explained the matter. At this time, Zhang Yi had just walked out of the maid cafe not long ago and was planning to find a pachinko shop to kill time or go to the video game arcade to experience the characteristics of neon. Hearing what Uncle Yu said, he glanced at the sky and said, You can't drink. If you meet someone strange, remember to inform me as soon as possible. You can indulge him for others. Okay, I understand. Uncle Yu ended the call, stared at Fatty Sue, and reminded him again. Remember, you are not allowed to drink during the mission. Fatty Sue's excited face looked like he had drunk 2 pounds of dried sweet potatoes. Okay. Fatty Sue did not go there to drink. To be precise, he came for the young ladies who accompanied him in the pub. His alcohol tolerance was very poor, and he could not drink much at all, but his greedy and lustful nature had never changed. After entering, he immediately found a box and sat down. The mama-san in charge of reception came over in a white kimono, smiled and bowed to ask the guests if they needed anything. Uncle Yu folded his arms, sat in the corner with his strong bear-like figure, and his face was as black as a piece of pig iron. He replied coldly, No need. He was not interested in Japanese women. Fatty Sue came over and said with a smile, Uncle Yu, think about the problem from another angle. We are also winning glory for the country. Uncle Yu rolled his eyes. You are really pushing your luck. I tell you, I won't make a mistake at this time. He was born in a military family and knew how to do things properly, so he was confused like Fatty Sue. But Fatty Sue waved his hand and said to the mama-san, Come on. 2, no one over 18. Mama-san bowed and retreated with a smile. Uncle Yu couldn't help it and said to him with gritted teeth, Zhang Yi indulges you, but you don't do anything reckless. No one over 18. What are you talking about? Fatty Sue blinked. Of course, it's a fruit plate.
Damn.
Do you believe what you said? Just when Uncle Yu was about to beat him up, Fatty Sue held his hand, and his eyes became serious. Uncle Yu, don't get excited. I'm not here for no reason. Humph, of course I know you have a reason. Oh, that's not what I meant. Fatty Sue looked around, then lowered his voice and said to Uncle Yu. Uncle Yu, although he looks like a loser on weekdays, but he is at least an ice and snow person with an ability index of 9,000. Uncle Yu opened his eyes wide and looked at Fatty Sue up and down. You are quite self-aware. Ahem. That's not the point. He said seriously. I am more sensitive to changes in temperature in the air than ordinary people. He said. He stretched out his hand in the air, as if he slowly grabbed something in the void. I haven't forgotten the boss's mission. Now I am working hard to improve my usefulness and avoid dragging everyone down. So all the way here I was actually walking towards crowded places. Uncle Yu put away the contempt on his face. What did you find? Fatty Sue stared at him and said seriously, these people look normal, but their body temperature is obviously wrong. Even the boss didn't notice this. But I noticed it. Body temperature? Uncle Yu couldn't help but be stunned.
Who can detect this thing?
Then what is your plans? Fatty Sue's mouth curled up into a deep smile. He raised his head and looked at the mama-san who was walking towards him with several sexy hostesses and rubbed his hands vigorously. I have to feel it myself to prove my guess. Uncle Yu almost got his nose crooked with anger. After all this talk, doesn't he just want to get close to the young lady? Chapter 1490, For Nightfall. The four groups were all moving in Edo City, not far from each other, and all centered on the Daliangda Museum. Zhang Yi and the other four found a Japanese restaurant and waited for the night to fall. The aroma of barbecue filled the air, but no one ate it. Zhang Yi glanced at the time displayed on the retina by the intelligence system and then glanced at the gradually darkening sky outside the window. It was almost evening. Once the night got dark, they would act immediately. In the izakaya, Fatty Sue was already hugging people on both sides, drinking juice happily. He even took off the belt of a hostess and wrapped it around his head. A fat, salty hand was placed on the hostess's thigh and patted it. Wow, young girls are good. Their thighs are very elastic, Fatty Sue said with a lecherous look and secretly gave Uncle Yu a look. As he thought, there was something strange about the people in Edo City. Uncle Yu's eyes swept across the people in the izakaya sharply. If it is true that the human body temperature here is abnormal as Fatty Sue said, then they are obviously not ordinary people. The possibility that they are all aliens is extremely low. The greater possibility is that these people are puppets, or the product of supernatural powers. Thinking of this in his heart, Uncle Yu's muscles can't help but tighten. In that case, wouldn't these people already know their identities? Uncle Yu frowned, and the hostess next to him saw this, smiled and came over with a glass of wine and sat next to Uncle Yu. Uncle, since you're here, why are you sitting here alone? Come, let me toast you a glass, okay? The hostess said and handed over the glass in her hand. Uncle Yu's eyes flashed, and he reached out to take the glass, but deliberately exerted force in secret. Pop. The glass filled with Champagne King fell on the table and shattered directly. The glass fragments crossed the hostess's white thigh, directly cutting a cut, and blood soon overflowed. Ah! The hostess screamed, and the movement here also attracted the attention of the people around. Uncle Yu has been staring at the hostess's reaction. Seeing that she didn't look like she was pretending to be surprised, and the wound on her leg was indeed from a living person, he became even more confused. It's not a puppet or a robot. What's going on? Could it be that what happened in Edo Castle is a collective mutation? Uncle Yu apologized quickly and took out toilet paper to help her stop the bleeding. Mama-san, who rushed over in a hurry, also put on a flattering smile after receiving the large transfer from Fatty Sue. I'm very sorry to trouble you. Fatty Sue waved his hand. It's okay. My friend is here for the first time in such a place, maybe a little too excited. Mama-san took the hostess and retreated with thousands of thanks. The doubts in Uncle Yu's eyes did not dissipate for a long time. What's going on? Fatty Sue couldn't communicate with Uncle Yu on the spot. While continuing to feel the body temperature of the two hostesses with his palms to confirm his inner guess, he signaled to Uncle Yu with his eyes, asking him to stay calm and not panic. The situation here is a bit complicated. Let's wait until we meet up with Zhang Yi and the others. Uncle Yu poured himself a glass of milk and slowly poured it down his throat, but it tasted like a refrigerated product. After all, where can you get fresh milk now? Even if there is, only the bigwigs in the upper class can enjoy it. Time unknowingly came to 5 o'clock in the evening. The night seemed to suddenly dim. The thick darkness was like a huge curtain that was pulled from west to east, instantly covering the sky. Fatty Sue and Uncle Yu were still thinking, and the communication from Zhang Yi rang in their ears. It's time. Come and gather. At the same time, several other groups of people were also ready to set off and gather near the Daliangde Museum according to the original plan. Fatty Sue came back to his senses. Oh, I almost forgot the business. Uncle Yu, let's go. He pinched the thigh of the hostess next to him. But this time, he no longer felt the warm and soft skin, and the place where his fingers touched became extremely cold. Fatty Sue was stunned for a moment, turned his head to look at the hostess next to him, and saw that her eyes suddenly became dull, as if someone had taken out the battery of a machine. Fatty Sue stretched out his hand in surprise and wanted to pat her cheek. But as soon as he exerted a little force on his hand, he heard a click, and her head actually fell directly from her neck to the ground, turned twice, and rolled to Fatty Sue's feet, staring at him. Ah! Fatty Sue almost screamed, but soon a hand reached out and covered his mouth. Uncle Yu whispered, "Calm down. Look around." Fatty Sue stared at the surroundings with his eyes wide open, but the scene around him made his bladder feel uncomfortable. In the originally lively izakaya, everyone stopped their actions in an instant. Like a robot without power, they stayed in place sluggishly. The whole izakaya was dead silent. Only the shrill howling of the wind came from outside the window, like a night demon passing low in the sky. Woo dash! Woo dash! The night. The wind howled, and the lights in the pub began to flicker and finally went out with a pop. The figures in the shadows looked like cold corpses. Fatty Sue had seen big scenes before, but he was still scared by the weird scene in front of him. Uncle Yu took out a large pistol, loaded it with bullets, and calmly pointed it around. This broken place is really weird. Before he contacted Zhang Yi had already pulled them all into the communication channel. Be careful around. This place has become very weird now. Don't show up on the street. There are strange things coming out. Before Zhang Yi finished speaking, Fatty Sue saw a huge black shadow suddenly appear on the window outside the window, with an eyeball as big as an adult staring at them. Fuck. Pop. A huge arm directly smashed the glass and grabbed Fatty Sue and Uncle Yu. Blow. Blow snow. Fatty Sue screamed. His voice was distorted, like a duck with its neck pinched. A violent ice storm burst out from his mouth, directly shattering the entire izakaya. The huge arm was also affected and did not grab them but just grabbed behind them. Go. Uncle Yu picked up Fatty Sue, and in an instant, the combat uniforms wrapped around their bodies, and the two of them quickly rushed to the street. However, the scene they saw next made them extremely regretful to escape from the izakaya, because at this time, they would rather hide in the house and not see what was happening outside. Chapter 1495, Night Parade of 100 Demons. Under the dark sky, the Edo city, which was bustling during the day, had become dead silent. There was no pedestrian on the street, and the lights of thousands of houses suddenly went out. Only the colorful searchlights from the center of the city shot through the lonely gray fog and shot into the sky. The whole Edo was shrouded in a thick fog. In the fog, countless huge shadows appeared, like hills, trees, and beasts passing through the deserted streets, walking aimlessly towards here. It was late at night, and hundreds of demons were walking at night. The one who attacked Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue was a monster with 6 arms. It had a human-like body, short lower limbs, but its arms were longer than its body, tens of meters long. The dark body looked like a clumsy ink painting, with only one eye on its head and a huge mouth that occupied half of its face. Oh. After the attack failed, it slowly retracted its arm, then turned around to face Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue, and let out a sad wail. This, what the hell is this? Fatty Sue was so scared that his face turned pale, and his voice became shrill, like a woman. The monster had already supported the ground with its thick arms and rushed towards them quickly. Just as Uncle Yu summoned the exoskeleton armor and planned to fight the monster, a familiar figure suddenly flashed in front of him. "Don't waste time here. Let's go." At the critical moment, Zhang Yi rushed over as soon as possible. As he said, he could go anywhere he wanted in the entire Edo City, at any time. Therefore, when he found that Edo City became weird after nightfall, he took action as soon as possible and gathered everyone together. Shwa. The shadow space unfolded, and Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue entered it. The huge evil ghost in front opened its mouth, as if it had opened a huge pocket, and covered Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi stretched out his hands and pointed forward. His hands turned in the air like a key. The body of the evil ghost suddenly twisted strangely in the air, and then was torn apart fiercely. Space skill, divine domain purification, an instant and unsolvable strangulation skill within a radius of 3 kilometers. After killing the giant ghost in seconds, the terrible shadows in the gray fog seemed to feel what happened here and turned their heads. For a moment, a chill of being stared at by countless monsters appeared in Zhang Yi's heart. His pupils shrank slightly, and he actually felt like he had encountered a terrifying opponent. In the gray fog in front of him, there were many existences that could make him feel difficult. But this feeling was a bit strange. What are these things? Does the legend of the 100 Demons Night Parade in the Heian period of Neon really exist? Facing an unknown opponent, even though he was already a Black Chariot-level alien, Zhang Yi still chose to retreat first. He led everyone through space several times and came to the vicinity of the Great Liangdu National Museum to find Deng Shintong and others. At this time, several people were also hiding under the cover of night, trying to hide through huge buildings. But for some reason, the giant ghosts in the fog seemed to be able to smell the human scent on them and chased them relentlessly. Deng Shintong drew his sword, and a 4-pointed star of white holy light slashed at the ghosts in the fog behind him. But wherever the holy light passed, it only delayed them for a moment, and soon they chased them again. Seeing that they were shrouded in thick fog and had no way to escape, Zhang Yi flashed in the void. "Follow me." Zhang Yi asked Deng Shintong and others to enter the shadow space, and then shuttled to the outside of Edo Castle without hesitation. Before he figured out what secrets this city was hiding, he would never dare to act rashly. A moment later, Zhang Yi had already flown high into the sky. He looked back at Edo Castle, which had long been shrouded in thick fog. At this moment, the city was shadowy and full of ghosts. This scene made him shudder. He had never seen such a strange scene in the human world. I really don't know what happened in Edo during this period after the end of the world. It is impossible for the Imperial Demon Court and the Columbia Navy to not know about this. But they have not noticed any large energy fluctuations here. Did their people just ignore it? Or are these strange things also controlled by them? Zhang Yi knew very well that even if he broke into the team of the night parade of 100 demons with his current strength, he would hardly be able to escape, and he could only rely on his ability to escape.
To say a cliché,
if the alien who appeared in Edo City today was not Zhang Yi, even if he could escape, he would probably be seriously injured. "Let's go." Zhang Yi fled far away, without hesitation. Fortunately, the range covered by this fog was only in the Edo City area, and the fog quickly dissipated when he reached the outer area. After Zhang Yi landed, he confirmed that there were no other aliens around, and then let Deng Shintong and others come out of the shadow space. At this time, everyone's face was a little bad. Just now, Edo City fell into the night in an instant, and it turned from a prosperous city into a purgatory on earth, which made them suffer a huge shock in their hearts. Deng Shintong held his elbow with one hand and his chin with the other hand with a serious expression, muttering to himself, "Impossible. Based on our understanding of Neon, it is impossible for so many terrifying beings to appear in this place." Zhang Yi glanced at him and said lightly, "Didn't you say that you have done a very complete investigation of Neons?" Deng Shintong smiled bitterly and explained awkwardly, Neon is a link in the chain that blocks Huaxi from going out to sea, and there is also the Columbia Navy. Even if the Deng family's intelligence network is very powerful, it is impossible to accurately collect all the information in Edo. Zhang Yi took a deep look at Deng Shintong, walked up to him step by step, and stared at Deng Shintong with sharp eyes. Do you really know nothing? Did you really call me to Edo just for an authentic copy of Xinxue? Deng Shintong's eyes did not dodge at all, and he nodded vigorously. I can guarantee it with the honor of being the heir of the Deng family. This is the first time I have come into contact with all this. Deng Shintong's eyes did not seem to be fake, and such a proud person would not easily swear in the name of the Deng family. Zhang Yi rubbed his eyebrows. If you say so, we have no idea what's going on here right now. The night operation has to be cancelled for the time being. How about changing the action plan to daytime? Bai Chunyu stepped forward and said, I'm afraid it may be difficult. During the day, there will be people visiting the Daliangde Museum, and there is a great risk of being exposed if we sneak in. Once we are discovered by the Demon Court and the Columbia Navy, we will be in big trouble. Even if we can escape, it will bring us huge trouble. The most troublesome thing is that once Xinxue is no longer collected in the museum, but has been moved away long ago, they will realize the value of this thing.